is the meeting of the Manchester Planning Board, and it's rescheduled from our snow day on Monday. And tonight we are just gonna be talking about the senior housing, proposed student housing bylaw. So if you want to talk about something else, that's not on our agenda tonight, and we're not gonna be talking about our downtown zoning, so if you were wondering about that. Our next meeting will be our regularly scheduled meeting in a week and a half. And we do have a meeting with the select board to go on Monday, just to go over our proposals for town meeting at office. So with that, I will call to order, and we have Gordon Brewster.
Yeah.
Chris Olney.
Here.
Sarah Creighton. Peter
Here.
Morton, and Brian Fry.
Here.
Great, thank you. So tonight, I'm gonna turn it over to Chris. And Chris has been pushing the senior housing zoning bylaw up the hill for 5 years.
Promoting.
Promoting,
Pushing.
right.
Up a hill.
He's been asking us to keep our eye on the ball, and that is not what I want to hear. And we seem to keep finding other things that are priorities, but today we are going to start talking about the senior housing bylaw and our proposal for town meeting. So with that, Chris, I will let you take it away.
Okay, and I'll do you for slides, is that?
Yeah. 60 or something.
We can go on to the next slide. So for people tuning in, want to know more information that we may not be covering tonight, you can go to the town website. And the circle, if you go to where that's circled and click on that, you'll get access to frequently asked questions, the actual zoning bylaw, and other material that will be hopefully of interest to you. Okay, so why are we doing this? Well, I am a senior, and I'm one of around 1,500 other seniors living in town. And of those 1,500, about 250 of us are renters. We're renting apartments or condos. And of that group, of that 250, about 80 are in the two existing senior housing complexes in town, which are public housing at the Plains and at Newport Park that are owned and operated by the Manchester Housing Authority. However, there are probably more than 1,000 of us that are rattling around in our single family homes. And so the problem is, some of us want to downsize. Some of us need services to be able to maintain independent living. Some of us need actually more care than that. And if we want to downsize, or if we need assistance to get by, we have to move out of town because there's no place for us to go here. The town does not have a supply of appropriate housing to meet the needs of seniors. And one final point is that Manchester is the only community on the North Shore that I'm aware of that does not have zoning provisions to allow senior housing. So that's why we're trying to do this. And so the goal is first to encourage small age-restricted units for seniors. Second, to encourage the conversion of existing buildings for seniors. That could be existing commercial or other buildings in town, maybe some estates. And the third is to provide a range of housing opportunities and allow more options for downsizing than currently exist in this town. And finally, we want to provide a range of housing types. Okay, so what is senior housing? Senior housing is for occupants that are 55 years of age or older. And it is actually technically an exception to the fair housing laws of the country, which don't allow property owners to discriminate, or property owner sellers to discriminate against future residents. But you can discriminate for seniors. So to do that, you have to designate it as senior housing with a deed restriction to limit occupancy to either 55 years or older, or in some cases, 62 years of age or older. Senior housing is typically designed to accommodate the needs of older adults, so they're usually single level living, or maybe an elevator perhaps, or something else to allow easy access. Units are typically smaller, they're more affordable, and they typically offer services such as housekeeping and yard maintenance, that kind of thing that most single-family homeowners have to do for themselves. So there are several types of senior housing that exist. The most common and typical everyone knows about is independent senior housing. This is basically simply housing units that are age restricted. There are no services typically offered other than what would be included in any other residential use. Assisted living facilities, we know about those now too. They are much smaller units, and as part of the occupancy of an assisted living facility, you get meals, housekeeping, and healthcare services as needed. The third type are memory care facilities. These are usually much smaller sized units for people who have memory issues, dementia. And finally, I guess the most well-known are continuing care facilities, which are a whole range of different kinds of housing on one campus. They're usually much larger. They offer independent living, usually clustered townhome kinds of things, assisted living, nursing care, all of it on one campus. I think the best known example nearby is Brooksby Village in Danvers. Okay, so the proposal, we're talking about two different types of independent senior housing that would be appropriate for Manchester. First would be independent senior housing. These would be clustered townhomes or cottages or apartments. They could be allowed in any zoning district. They would require a special permit to ensure compatibility with the neighborhood. We haven't yet finally decided what the minimum lot size would be. A half acre would allow 5 units. A full acre would allow 10 units. And that is the absolute limit of density would be 10 units per acre. There'd be a maximum of 60 units on any site. And there would be still full compliance with setbacks, height restrictions, lot coverage would all be the same as what's allowed in each district. And there'd be parking required appropriate for the kind of use being proposed for both residents and staff. The second type of housing we're discussing is assisted living. Typically, we see of assisted living as 50, 60, 120 units, but they don't have to be that big. And this photograph here is of John Bertram House in Salem, which has 25 assisted living units in an existing historic building. We would allow them in any zoning district except the D1 and D2 districts, which are a little more dense. And we would allow them in the downtown and in the G district as well. Again, they'd require a special permit. It'd be a half acre or a full acre. It's be the same density of 10 units per acre. They would also comply with all height setbacks and other district requirements. And there would be more parking required for some residents, but mostly for staff and for visitors. So we're not talking about allowing memory care units or continuing care communities at this stage. We want to start with something reasonable and then see how it goes. And then something if it looks like it's. The large scale properties like Brookfield Village would never be allowed. It would also be a limit on the size of units, so they don't get too extravagant. We'd allow 2 bedrooms with a 1,200 square foot limit, 1 bedroom is 100 square foot, and a 600-foot studio. And again, there'd be 10 units allowed per acre and a maximum of 60 units. We can also allow local preference. That means that people who are either current residents, relatives of residents, former residents, or former employees would all be allowed to, would have a preference to live in one of these communities. And there'd be some affordability requirements also. For every 5 units produced, 1 would have to be affordable. Some site is affordable with a deed restriction and would be eligible for listing on the SHI, which would mean deed restrictions and regulatory agreements and all that comes with that. And the planning board could, at its discretion, at its sole discretion, allow a reasonable number of additional units if they were all affordable. So we're hoping that we can get a mix of units available to people with different incomes as well. That's it. It's a pretty simple bylaw, but one that's very important for the town. It would serve both current residents like myself that are seniors. It would help regular residents who might have aging parents living in other communities that they would like to get them moved closer by. And it would also help the whole town because we're losing a lot of people who are important volunteers in our town. They need to downsize, they can't, so they move away. And we've lost a lot of them over the last several years, and we're gonna lose a lot more if we can't make accommodations for them. With that, I think we should, I guess, open it up to anyone have on the planning board have any comments they want to add to this, something I've missed?
The only thing I was gonna add, and I should have put it in the slideshow, is that we currently have a completely vague and undefined housing type called charitable or philanthropic use, hospital nursing care facility or sanatorium by special permit of the planning board. So that would be deleted because it's impossible to know what it is given the current zoning. And so this is a significant better definition and upgrade to our current zoning. Any other comments from the board? So questions or comments from Gary or John in the room, or and then we'll turn it over to the people online who might have questions or comments.
Yeah, got a question, John Round, 3 Greenbrier. Is the intent that these units will be for rent or for sale?
Either. Whichever works for the person developing them, sure, rent or sale.
Okay, either one with the developer. Now, how does that work with the affordable angle?
So affordable condos, we have some in town, actually at 12 Summer Street. They are, the price of the unit is set by all the same income standards and is a reduced price from the market price, of course. And they can only be sold at that affordable price to an income eligible buyer.
I was curious, I mean, we're all aware of the 40B program and there are certain trade-offs in exchange for affordable housing. You get certain advantages with regard to permits and variances and that sort of thing. Are there any kinds of programs along those lines for seniors? Because 40B, you gotta be open to everybody.
You can have a senior or 40B,
Can you have a senior 40B?
absolutely,
I
sure.
didn't know that.
Yeah, there's one in Wenham right now, called Maple Woods. It was done by Harbor Lake Communities, very successful, I think 60 units there,
Okay.
filled right up. And it's affordable.
Does that, with that sort of approach, of course, a lot of the variance issues and permit issues kind of get bypassed. That's a
Sure.
concern.
But we can't zone for that.
Right.
We
Yeah.
can't change, we can't change
If
it.
that's what happens, that's what happens.
Somebody comes in with a 40B, we can either make it a friendly 40B or we can.
Okay.
But I think by having a senior housing bylaw, we at least have an opportunity for people who want to make a modest size assisted living in the community to do it within the confines of the zoning bylaw.
Okay, all right.
Rather than right now, the only way to do a senior housing facility is either with the housing authority, I guess, or with the 40B.
Right, right. I don't know, you gave an examples in your Q and A of 3 or 4 of these senior developments that are around here.
Mhm.
Have they just been done directly through developers that have put things together, or
So,
have there been special state programs such as the senior 40B that have generated that, or?
so there's actually is a lesson to be learned from our neighboring communities. Hamilton has a senior housing bylaw. I believe it requires a minimum of 25 acres. And there are no senior housing projects in Hamilton as a result. Wenham is much more practical. They still have a lot more land than we do, but they say 7-acre minimum lot size. They have 3 communities. One was done maybe 15 years ago called the Maples in downtown Wenham. It's an old mansion right off 1A that's been repurposed on a bunch of little buildings around it as well. I think it's got 55 units for sale as condos for seniors. And then there's a newer one across the street in Wenham called the Boulders, which is only.
I know that one.
Yeah, that's a little too spacious and luxurious, we think, for Manchester. The units sold for $1.5 million. They're all 3-bedroom units, very richly appointed. There was a beautiful site. People there are very, very happy.
I know 2 people in there, and I've been in them, I'm aware, yeah, they're very nice.
Yeah, so they do, and of course, there Danvers and Beverly all have these larger senior communities as well.
Right. I saw that you have 1 acre and half acre. You're kind of pushing that around. 1 acre kind of shoves you into A, I think. 40,000 square feet or
You
more.
could have an acre, you could have an acre in the general district.
You might.
Yeah, C, E,
Okay.
But then you get 10 units as opposed to 5 units. That might be a better scale for Manchester, so.
might get fewer
Yeah,
conversions.
well, with the half acre, that gives a tremendous amount, more flexibility.
More
for sure.
flexibility, that's right.
That's for sure. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the boulders, and how that would not actually pass in our zoning bylaw, proposed zoning bylaw, because we've actually limited the size of the
Yeah, I saw that.
units
They're pretty,
to pretty small. And the reason for that is we are increasingly trying to think about scale in town. Scale seems to be one of the things that I think is the word that people are concerned about. Not necessarily build out, but when you build something out, that the scale is enormous, or that and that's something we've heard a lot of times. So, and the need is for, the other need that has been identified by the master plan, and we hear, is for less expensive, not necessarily big A, affordable on the affordable, roles, but less expensive units. And so when you make them smaller, presumably they are less expensive
in general, yeah.
in general. Okay, comments, Gary?
I've got two bigger comments and then some miscellaneous ones. Correct me if I'm wrong, but another way you could frame this is that all of these projects would have to have an affordable unit in them, right?
Yes,
If you do 5, or you could do 4 on a half acre lot and not
You
have to
could-
have an affordable.
that's right, you could do that.
Okay, so if someone wants to max out, the use of this, you might build on a half acre lot of 6,000. Let's say you're gonna have 5 2-unit, the larger units, 5 2-bedroom units, you have a 6,000 square foot home or townhouse. Basically, that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
if you wanna make them big. So that's what we would see, is like that photo you showed of the building with 24 units or something, that's a large single building which has apartments in it. Nothing too weird. Or townhouses, side by side or up and down, side by sides, however they would design it. And I contend that you don't need to require a special permit. It's too many times zoning and planning, they lean back on, oh, we'll have a special permit. What does that really mean? I mean, I've been in the zoning board for years where I've made, conducted special permit hearings. I think you have too, right? Someone else here has. If you're worried about the lighting they may put on it not shining outward, well, put that in the law. I mean, the onus, I think, is on you to write the law so that as detailed as you want, but there's nothing to really review in a special permit review. Unless, let's say, they want to go exceed the number of units and get your permission. Then you require a special permit. I really think laws, if possible, should not require a special permit. I mean, again, what on a practical level would you actually tell somebody to change on the design they bring through, they present to you, because the special permit process is onerous and time consuming and costly. So just think it through. I mean, I can't really imagine if they build within their setbacks and they don't cover more of their lot than they're allowed. And if it was a single family home, they could do it, right? Would by right. Why would this be any different? They got to satisfy parking requirements, et cetera. You're not going to tell them the front door has to be here versus there. No one wants to hear that. Or the style of the building needs to be this, that. No one ever tells anybody that. So I don't see a need for it. But there are certain things in here you touch on where there's opportunity, where you could ask for a special permit. You talk about size limits. I would suggest that continuing care, memory care could be allowed with size limits in the LCD. I mean, why not? It's not going to hurt anybody. And we might see a smaller scale, who knows, 6 to 10 units or 15 units there. And it's needed in the region. Where these facilities are needed regionally, not just in our town. Our town also, right? You say slightly more if they were affordable under item 7. Well, that's where you could require a special permit. If someone is going out of the way to make all of them affordable, maybe they may say, and even for the size limits, you might say you could exceed these size limits of 1,200 square feet with a special permit, because they may deserve it. Maybe they're going to make a bunch of really small ones, which really is sort of an organic way of getting lower cost, be it an apartment or a condo. And I think we should encourage the heck out of that, because we can't mandate people. The only thing we have in this state is the defined affordable, I forgot the right term, the affordable unit, which we all know is not particularly that affordable. There's a whole missing middle in between high end and that. So we could get it organically by letting somebody have 7 units, as long as they're, I don't know, 750 square feet or whatever, but they present a good design. That's where you have a special permit, in my opinion. And it's easy enough to work into what you've got. This is a good description, by the way. In Texas, you cover a lot of things. Do I understand correctly in item 8 that could you have a 900 square foot 2-bedroom? I mean, you're going to say
I think that's a typo. It should be 1 bedroom.
they don't have to be 1 bedroom. It could be 900 with 2 bedrooms.
One of the thoughts I had was actually,
Smaller.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Maximum, yeah,
Maximum.
When you word the text of the
Yeah.
law.
yeah. In fact, here's the law, draft law.
Yeah, you mentioned bonus units. Well, encourage it. For a reason that we would get something out of it. But this is what I took off your website.
Yeah, that's the FAQs. This is the draft
Oh,
law.
I'll
Anyway.
sit down, I'll kick it. Yeah, I think the LCD is an easy place to allow some other facilities, again, with a reasonable size restriction. And I'm sure you have a consultant working with you that could suggest a size limit there. There's no reason to exclude it. But other than that, It's great, it's interesting, and I think we're talking about apartments or townhouses, that's what we're gonna see.
So can I just respond on the special permit?
Mhm.
So we want to have this pass. And remember, I said at the beginning that we've been talking about this for a long time, whether it's 5 years. And there has been, through that process, not so much recently, but through that process, there have been objections on particularly assisted living, which might be run by a commercial entity rather than condos that were owned, which might be the assisted living model. About where's the dumpster going to go and where's there'll be a lot of traffic of staff and that kind of thing. So that I think our putting special permit there says there'll be oversight on how this higher density affects a neighborhood. And I think there are people in town who are concerned about that. And I think this gives them if they're a neighbor of something, it gives them a voice. And there are special permit criteria for traffic and noise and views and landscaping and signage and lighting. And so I did make note of your suggestion, but I think that that's why we came to that, is that we are putting a higher density in single family districts. We are proposing to allow, not put, but to allow a higher density, six apartments or, an acre, 10 apartments next to, on the property next to my single family home, which is what we're trying to do. But there are people I think there's a large group of voters who want to have a say in that because it's quite different. And they want to say and so I think it's a pragmatic piece. So.
Are you gonna make a distinction in following up to that between independent living versus assisted
Right
living?
now we have not.
I know.
No.
Everything's the same,
Right.
although it's not the same really in terms of what the use is.
So we could I wrote it down. We'll certainly consider that.
I would again say, I would challenge you on that and say, if you're concerned where dumpsters are located, put it in the law. If you're concerned what traffic is like, you're requiring them to have some parking spaces. The cars are gonna go in and out. There is not gonna be a traffic problem. They're gonna have a certain number of allowed cars, and we have cars in town. We're gonna continue to have cars in town. Who owns it? Commercial entity. That's again, in no way a reason to require a special permit. If they were to exceed your basic framework, then you could require a special permit, but it doesn't particularly help the democratic process if every neighbor puts their ideas, which could be well prepared, well thought out or not, from A to Z, in on when someone's trying to build something. Should be a need to allow that, not just to do it so people feel comfortable. If you're the one trying to develop this, you're up against a shark's cage. I mean, it's for developers, it's problematic, and I think you need to see it from their point if you want to see them actually get built.
Yep, duly noted. Mark has his hand up. Mark Resnick, planner.
Suzanne,
I can unmute you.
Okay,
Oops, I just.
there we
Go
go.
ahead.
You hear me now?
Yeah,
So all of the site design elements you're talking about, dumpsters, screening, traffic, those all fall under the site plan review regulations that anything would have to be reviewed under. But what the special permit does is if someone's trying, because of the quality of our land around Manchester, and they're trying to put all the units in a really not desirable place because of that's the only place to put it, it gives the board the ability to say no. And this isn't an appropriate site, this is an appropriate layout, as opposed to a site plan review where you're really looking at the functionality only of the site. And so I think that's kind of more of the distinction between the two. And whereas this is something new and you haven't had it before, I think the kind of the track you're taking in order to try and get it through town meeting and get people to accept the significantly higher density is the right one. Special permit usually doesn't necessarily keep developers away. It's the rules that they have to follow where it makes it uneconomic is what keeps them away. So I think that's kind of the distinction here.
Okay, great. Anybody else online like to make a comment or question? All right, so what the next steps here are, we are continuing to work on this, and we will be presenting it to the select board in an informal way next Monday, and they will be voting to have us put it on the town meeting warrant, and that will, then we will have another forum like this that will be actually a public hearing as required by law. And remind everybody that the draft bylaw, it is a draft, is available on the planning board website along with the frequently asked questions. And as things change, as we make small revisions, they will be updated to the best of our volunteer ability. And you can also find there the downtown zoning, which is also proposed for town meeting. So, any other things people would like to mention about senior housing? Great. With that, I will just remind the board that we are meeting, those who can, we don't need a quorum necessarily. We're gonna meet, I think, first thing at the select board meeting. We'll do a brief summary of our zoning. We also will be jointly voting on our associate members. We have 2 candidates. I'm not sure that they need to come, but I need to work that through.
Just so you know, the agenda says that they will be interviewed on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm gonna, since we only have 2, I'm hoping that we can just look at their applications. And I'm not sure that they can come, so we'll work that out anyway. But that's the plan, so.
Just a question, at the select board meeting, all articles are on the table, is that correct? Or it's not just this one?
Yeah, correct. We're gonna talk about downtown zoning
Everything.
and, yeah.
More homework.
Yeah, but we're gonna talk about it at a high level to sort of, I
I
mean,
understand.
and, so yeah. Mark, do you have anything else? You still have your hand up. Thanks, John.
Oh,
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Mark?
yeah, no, I don't have anything else, just that we'll review all the zoning articles, like you said, at a high level with the select board on Monday, get any feedback, and then review them again, perhaps some of them for the last time the following Monday, so.
Okay, thanks. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
All in favor? Great, thank you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Chris.
thanks, Chris. You're getting there.
Nice done.
You're getting there.
Thank you,